Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You're here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. Our guest today is Jodie Lynn Craven. Jodie Lynn has served in the role of financial advisor, financial educator, and creator of Abundant Consciousness and the Fluid Money Blueprint. Jodie Lynn has over a decade of advanced knowledge, experience, and expertise in modern financial structures and alternatively the mindset and energy behind money. There's some call to actions, and we'll give that at the end of the show. So if you want to hear what they are, you better stay on for another 24 and a half minutes. So welcome to the show, Jodie Lynn Craven, and tell us, how did you get here?
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you. And how did I get here? Oh man, I feel like I have to go backwards in time to tell you how I ended up here so perfectly. In my early 20s, I was in love and dumb. I guess, I don't know. I didn't know anything about money. I wasn't really interested in saving money. I thought buying shoes was the best option.
Mm-hmm.
And
it is.
yeah, right. Never really taking my parents' advice on saving or anything. And, so I'm early 20s and I decide to buy a house. And the timing was quite unfortunate, or I guess when you look at the bigger picture, I can call it fortunate now because of everything I've learned from it. But I bought at the peak of the market before the 2008 financial crisis. So fast forward a couple of years later, the market had crashed, the housing market had died, the lake that I lived on died, and so did my relationship. So I was in this position of feeling stuck. I have to stay because to leave meant torching my financial life, everything, going through consumer proposal or bankruptcy and foreclosing on my very first home at 25 years old. And I remember sitting in that place and being angry and ashamed and feeling so stuck and having this pivotal conversation with my dad, which I think is really important. So I talk about it all the time because I know that there's people who feel stuck because of the situation that they're in with money. And I remember telling my dad, I really want to leave this relationship, but I can't because of money. And he said two things that made all the difference in the world. Number one, it's just money and you can always make more. I like that one. And number two, you have to choose to be happy, Jodie Lynn. So either you choose to stay and you're choosing to be happy, or you choose to leave and you choose to be happy, because either one is your choice. So what choice do you make? So I chose to leave and I chose to be happy. I knew that it was an abusive relationship and it just really wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go in life and wasn't going to make me happy. So I left and I went through consumer proposal, which is one step above bankruptcy. I foreclosed on the house and it was such a learning process because, if you call the bank and ask them what happens if I don't pay my mortgage, they don't really want to answer that question for you. So I had to learn a whole lot, and it lit this fire for me to understand how money actually works and what you should do with your money. So much so that I actually got into the financial industry part-time because I had the hunger to learn. I thought if I knew all of this stuff before this happened, maybe I wouldn't have been in this position. So I went on this education journey, started to become a financial advisor, get licensed and, go through the whole training of all of that and fell in love with it at the same time, fell in love with how simple it could be and how simple it was to teach other people how and empower them to do the same. But fast forward a couple of years into my financial career, I started noticing that it wasn't just about, 2 + 2 = 4. You want more money, you got to go make more money. That was my initial thought. And you got to free up some money, take some debts off of you or whatever it may be. But for my clients, I would free them up, on average $1,000 a month. And this happened over and over and over again. And I would build them this beautiful plan of getting out of debt in the next, 12 to 24 months and just being in a radically different position than where they were today. And I would set everything up. Literally, Joanne, they would sign everything and I would walk away and say, okay, we'll see you in 6 months or a year from now or 18 months from now. I'm going to check in on your progress. And more often than not, I would go back and they would be in a worse position than when we started, even though they had that more money that we were talking about in the beginning. So it was my first cue that there was something bigger going on here. It wasn't just 2 + 2 = 4. It wasn't just the seen. It was also the unseen, the energy behind money and our mindset with it. So I launched into learning about mindset and how our brain, takes us on these tangents and how we're affecting and creating essentially a reality that we don't necessarily want with money. And I got kind of frustrated within the process, learning the spiritual side of things like the law of attraction and, the energy of money. And I was frustrated with how vague certain things were, like just be positive. For me, I'm an A-type personality. So how much more positive do I need to be? That was my question. So that's really when I turned within and I realized that I was a channeler. So I began to channel abundance codes and they came in forms of questions and statements and ideologies. And I started testing all of the information on myself and just through excitement talking about it with people. And that's how the Fluid Money Blueprint was born. Everything I learned to do was from that testing scenario that I went through with myself and then started testing on others.
Amazing. So the Fluid Money Blueprint is something we're going to talk about further to give our guests at the end of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that.
So what else did you learn and how did you share it with people?
Honestly, at the very beginning, it was the questions that were coming through were deepening my understanding of the abundance blocks or the way that I talk about abundance blocks, because I always thought it had to do with money. And that's where most people start with money is obviously with money. What are my thoughts around money? What are my beliefs around money? And the first ones that come up are the easy surface level ones. I got to work hard for money. I got to do more for money. It's bad to have money. And if you were to look at this scenario in terms of blocks, imagine your blocks are like a dam. So a big dam that's built up with a bunch of like cinder blocks or, concrete blocks, whatever you want to call them. When we start on the surface of those blocks, we're starting at the top of that dam. And what happens is we'll, scrape away at the mortar in between the bricks and eventually pry loose 1 or 2 at the very top. But it's not making a huge difference in our lives because we haven't gotten to the root belief system. So that's where I started. And when I started to really see, Joanne, was that it had nothing to do with money and everything to do with what I thought it meant about me, what I thought it meant about me as a person, what I thought it meant about me as being a good person even, or a bad person. I had connected money to every other area of my life, including me as a soul being. I wasn't good unless I had money. And so we need to understand what those blocks are. And with the Fluid Money Blueprint in the first phase, unlocking money blocks, I walk my students through 18 different questions that result in a response, because it's also the way that we're thinking and also the way that our body is interpreting and our perceptions of it. So our body is going through a fight, flight, freeze response most of the time when it comes to interacting with money. You'll feel that in the way that if you open up your bank account, this is how a lot of my students experience it for the first time, or the awareness of it, I guess, for the first time. They'll open up their bank account and they'll all of a sudden feel tightness in their throat and heaviness on their chest, and their shoulders will tighten up and they'll kind of like hunch forward, like they're almost getting into a fetal position. This is your body reacting to something, a trigger point of fear, of scarcity, of limits, whatever it was. And then you're going into this, what I call a scarcity cycle or a pattern of fear. And when we're in that pattern of fear, a lot of coaches will say, just shift to being positive. But the problem is we're like children when we're in this response, like 2-year-olds.
Right.
When a toddler is having a meltdown, you can't logic with them. You can't reason them. You can't just say, just smarten up. It doesn't work well. They keep having an over exaggerated response that gets bigger and bigger and bigger because they want to be acknowledged. So we have to acknowledge ourselves. What is the fear that we're experiencing? And a lot of times when you walk yourself through this process of understanding what it is that you're thinking through this fear, what you are actually afraid of, you start to see that it's old perceptions that you've been buying into that aren't necessarily true. And that actually leads into the second phase of the Fluid Money Blueprint.
Okay. And they'll get the first phase of the Fluid Money Blueprint information at the end of the show. I'm teasing everybody who's listening.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
how do we block? Okay, so why working more isn't receiving more? That's the second time I went to that.
Yeah.
Working
Why?
more doesn't result in receiving more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we're in that state of mind, what we're doing a lot of times, especially as women, because we have this perfection complex, we have to be perfect. In our mind, there is a woman out there that does it all perfectly, says it all perfectly, looks perfectly, is just perfect in every way, shape, or form. And that person is an illusion. It doesn't actually exist. So when we get into this cycle of, I need to do more, we get frustrated. Men do this as well, but women feel a lot more frustration around it. So I'd get frustrated and then I would get angry because I couldn't push myself to do more. And I would eventually hit this point where I was overwhelmed and I was experiencing adrenal fatigue, all of this stuff. I didn't have any more to give. But my mindset in that state was, I have to do more or I won't get paid money. So what my brain was looking for was the opportunity to prove me right. I have to do more so that I can get paid more money. And in separating those two, I mean, you only have so much time in a day, right?
Right.
There's 24 hours. So how much more can you work? Eventually, that belief system is saying that you can only make so much money. And it's also saying you're tying yourself or seeding in within your own reality that I have to do to be worthy to receive, which is not an absolute. And when I say absolute, Joanne, this is what I mean, that every single person in the world is run or governed by the same standard. So water is a great one. We all need water to survive as human beings. Okay. We can only survive for so many days without water. That is an absolute standard. It doesn't matter whether you're Bill Gates or, you're Joanne Victoria or Jodie, Lynn, Craven. You need water. Right? That's an absolute. But when you start to break down these beliefs that we have on how we receive money or what makes us deserving of receiving money, there's people in this world who have received a lot of money and they haven't done a lot. There's people who have done a lot and not received a lot. So I have to do more to receive more is not an absolute. And what happens when we're in this process, and I actually talk about this in my free training and I give a bunch of visuals, is that we get into this state of mind of I have to do more. And it's almost like being stuck in a rut of mud and you're just hitting the gas and you're just spending so much energy and focus on what you're not doing, that you're telling the universe, I'm not doing enough. I don't deserve more. I'm not doing enough. I don't deserve more. So the universe can only give you what you perceive and what you believe and what you are an energetic match to right now. So what you're telling the universe in those moments is, I don't deserve any more unless I'm doing more, but you're stuck in this rut of not doing enough. So we need another strategy. We need to look at the belief system so we can actually stop the belief system process or the automatic program that's running and open up a space for another possibility. The possibility that I opened up was it's possible that when I am rested, I can get more done than when I am not rested. And when I started to just ease off of this, I have to do more to receive more. And I started to open myself up to a different possibility. When I'm rested, I can achieve more. So I need to rest so I can get more done in those moments, if that makes sense.
Yes.
When I started to back off that initial belief system, what would happen was my brain was going to work to prove me right. So when I was rested and I was in that flow state, I would do in 2 hours what I could do before in 1 or 2 weeks. But when I was trying to push myself, it would take me 10 times longer. So I would actually do less, looking at the list of things that I wanted to accomplish. I would actually physically do less in the moments where I was trying to force it, because all of the energy it took to try and force the tires through the mud, so to speak. So it's working with that energy and your belief systems to create a new result without working more.
Okay. So we're back to, I would say we're back to belief systems. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where we start. Where we have to start. Because the way that we perceive the world is the way that the world shows up for us. So if you perceive that you have to be XYZ, fill in the blank, it has to be hard. That's a big one. If you perceive that it has to be hard, your brain is going to work to find that truth that you believe. Mm-hmm. So you're creating that in your reality. But what if it was easy? What if you trained your brain to see how easy it's been in the past? It's simply a perception, and stepping outside of that frame of what you're used to seeing and looking for another angle or another perspective that actually supports the direction you want to go.
Excuse me. I'm going to hold on. Excuse me. Wow. I'm going to have to edit that.
It's okay.
Not now, but I will. Okay. So if you see where we're sitting, and it must be hard. Mm-hmm. And this is what we're talking about. And we're talking about a belief system. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about, it must be hard.
Yeah, it's got to be hard for me to earn money, to be an entrepreneur, for me to get my business off the ground. We have this perception that everything has to be hard, but that's still the surface. We got to draw deeper. So what's under that? What if it wasn't hard? You start asking, or you start learning to ask yourself better questions. So what if it wasn't hard? And the immediate thing for most of my students is, if it wasn't hard, then I don't deserve it. And if I receive something that I don't deserve, then I'm bad. And if I'm bad, you see how we're drawing down to the deeper level where it has nothing to do with money. If I'm bad, this is mine. We always go to the extreme with our brain, and everybody has a different path. Mine is always death. So this is how it looks.
Death.
So I'm going to be bad and no one is going to love me. That's the next one for me. No one's going to love me. I'm going to end up all alone and I'm going to die. That is the root fear, being alone, nobody loving me, being all alone and dying all by myself. I don't know where this came from, but that's my brain. When it goes down that scarcity path, that's exactly what it's doing. So it's not really about the being hard. That's not really the belief system that we need to tackle. We need to go down that line of, okay, if it was easy and I received something that I didn't quote unquote deserve, then I will be bad. We need to start chunking those things up and looking at them individually. Is that true? What makes someone deserving to receive? And that's just a blanket question. You start thinking about that. And most of my students, when I ask this question, they'll say, oh, well, they're good. They've done something, that people need. They're a nice person. They're great at speaking. Like, they'll come up with all of these answers. And then I'll ask them, look at a child. If you have a child in your life, or you've seen one, you know this to be true. When you look at that brand new baby, doesn't matter what they look like, doesn't matter if they're crying or not. Our heart, our soul desires for that baby the entire world, everything, all of it, all of the joy that they can handle. We feel that at the deepest levels, that is what they are worthy of and deserving of. And yet they have done nothing. They're not a good speaker. They're not a good person yet, because they don't even talk. They don't do anything. They could be a colicky baby. You still think that they're deserving and worthy of all of the greatness the world has to offer. But at some point, as we enter adulthood, or I don't know when it happens in our lives, but that changes. And all of a sudden we put a marker on it. I have to be like this to be deserving. So when you start questioning these things and asking, well, what makes someone deserving? And then what makes someone bad? If I receive something that I don't deserve. Now we've put in question what makes someone deserving so they can edge off or ease off of that belief system of I have to do this to be deserving. Okay, now I'm deserving because I'm here and I have this beautiful soul and it's a miracle to be on this earth. And the point of being here is to experience. So now I'm deserving. Okay. So if I receive something that I didn't work for, maybe it just came to me in the mail. Does that make me bad? And you start to question your definition of bad. Well, what does it mean to be bad? And in our minds, we go to the worst thing. Like we're the worst person on earth, like should be banished from earth and never, allowed to be contacted, right?
Yes.
If you receive something that you didn't work for. Okay. So we're breaking down this pattern, this belief system, one chunk at a time and saying that doesn't fit anymore. That definition is old. That definition doesn't make sense. Or it was something that I picked up on when I was a kid and I no longer need to believe. So what's my new definition? What's my new definition of this? What's my new definition of work? A lot of people haven't asked that question of themselves. What does it mean to work hard for you? If our audience takes a breath and closes their eyes, it'll be very similar to this. Hands bleeding, like when you're clenching your fists, you're working so hard. You get like the fingernail indents. You can't see me, but I'm doing it right now. Right. Fingernail indents because your fists are gripped so tightly and you're just like gritting your teeth. That is most people's definition of hard work. Now, when you think about energy and you think about purchasing something from somebody or, working with somebody, if you're an entrepreneur, do you really want to work with somebody that is that like, I want to say bunged up. That's what it feels like. They're just like a ball of nerves and stress. They're like, that doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't. Yet we put ourselves in those situations all the time to justify how we feel. Ie. And I think that people need to take advantage of your YouTube channel, which is Jodie Lynn Craven, JodieLynnCraven.com/C2. Is that correct?
Yes, that is right. So my best friend and I, we have a YouTube channel. It's called Channel Squared. But that's how you can access it is /C2 after my website, and it'll take you right to us. We talk all about spirituality and talk all about the ascension process and how to deepen the relationship you have with yourself.
And then we also have a free training for those who have stayed on long enough, JodieLynnCraven.com, consistently attract more money.
Yeah. And if you go onto my website, JodieLynnCraven.com, there'll be a pop-up that eventually pops up for you as you're scrolling that'll ask you if you want to sit in on a free training. So the free training, it goes through that belief system. I have to work more to make more. And there's a beautiful visual that I've put in there to describe how you're kind of cutting yourself off from receiving by staying in this belief system. The second thing is that, the second belief system that we walk through is you can't feel anything but positive. I think a lot of people who are going through, spiritual ascension or, this personal development, a lot of times for myself included, we get stuck in thinking I have to be positive 24/7 or I'm going to attract that which I don't want. But it ends up being this false sense of positivity and a fake sense of positivity. And we end up getting stuck, or our emotions get stuck within the body. And then that becomes the average emotion that we feel. So I go through that and so much more. And then I actually go into the 3 phases of the Fluid Money Blueprint, how they work, why they're important, each shift that you get throughout the blueprint and those 3 steps, and then how you can access them at the very end.
Okay, there you go, people. As I usually say, I say usually because I'm not perfect, because I don't remember every time. But take this podcast, listen to it again with a pad and paper and a pen, and then take notes on what Jodie Lynn Craven has spoken to you about today. Because this is important stuff. Okay.
Lots of juiciness in there.
Lots of juiciness. And I want to thank you for being here today. And I think that we've got it. We've got C2, C squared.
Yeah.
On JodieLynnCraven.com. That's the YouTube channel. That's interesting. I like that titling of the YouTube channel. And how to attract more money training on her website. And how would people get a hold of you, Jodie Lynn?
Through my website, jodieLynnCraven.com, or through Instagram. You know, if you have a question or, you know, you're curious about something, I am the one that runs my Instagram account. So it's just Jodie Lynn Craven. You'll find me in my picture there, and just send me a message. I'm happy to have a conversation.
There you go, people. You'll have a private conversation with Jodie Lynn Craven for the world to see, but that's okay. Your friends aren't watching.
You can private message me. Yeah.
And I thank Jodie Lynn Craven for being here today. And I thank you for listening as well. Thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, we're done. You'll be at your podium or whatever you're using for your show in a few minutes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
It was easy. It was easy. I had an energetic first episode, and you as well are energetic. So this was piece of cake.
Good. Amazing. I love it.
Yes.
It was such a great conversation. I had a question. Oh, yes. Which email? You were going to check on the email for me to make sure I'm sending you the right picture or the right place to the.
I'm going to send you an email right now, so you have the email with you.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
okay, and then I can just reply back to that.
Right. It'll just be easier that way. And then that's it. Yeah. Perfect. We'll be fine. And this will be published in a couple of months, and I'll send you an email again when it's published so that you know when it is.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Yeah. Have a great day, Joanne.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.